Did this guy crawl out of a prison yard? A cop snickered, shoving a chair at the defendant. Jokes flew before the judge. Cuffs ordered, until the black man flashed a badge. Director, FBI. The gallery buzzed, then froze. A courtroom that usually treated justice like a punchline suddenly tasted its own echo. Humid air, paper musk, stale coffee, Monday dread. Then a question. What state are you from? Half the benches held clerks, interns, and a cluster from the local department. Routine boredom lingered like dust. Then the left door swung wide. Two security officers entered, faces set like fences in bad weather. Between them walked a black man, uncuffed, flanked close like an unlit fuse. His white shirt wrinkled, collar blotched with dried, wind-stiffened blood. He looked weathered by night air, yet carried a stillness that unsettled breath. The lights weren't harsh, but bright enough to catch that unnervingly calm stare. No anger, no plea, steel without shine. He neither nodded nor glanced. Pity sighed nearby. He didn't flinch. He sat, perfectly vertical, silent. Wood creaked. Someone coughed. He fixed his gaze just beyond the bench, a blind spot only he seemed to see. No name, no lawyer, no family. His emptiness felt deliberate, as if identity were classified absence. The clerk studied the file, brow folded. No address, guarantor, occupation, or record. She whispered toward the tech booth. Suspicion traveled the room like a draft. Minutes later, the judge entered, face flushed, steps stiff from desk hours. He scanned the first page, looked up, scanned again. His pen spun lazily. A tap on the mic. "We are convened." Silence lingered 5 seconds, until a small voice rose, bright and unfiltered, cutting grown-up pretense cleanly. Is he bad, Mom?" The boy, about 6 now, asked, finger pointed. His mother flushed and tugged him close too late. A young officer chuckled, another piled on. "That face? Yeah." Laughter rippled, nods and thigh slaps following. The defendant didn't move. Not embarrassed, not bristling, just a frozen lake before winter's fist. Innocent people protest, guilty people shrink. He did neither. Bystanders grew giddy. At silence they mistook for weakness. The judge cleared his throat to reclaim decorum. "Defendant's name?" No reply. "No entry," the clerk said. The judge frowned. "You have counsel." A slow, decisive shake. "Self-representation." Another nod, plain, unfrightened, like he'd already done the math. "Any statement before charges?" Their eyes met 3 seconds, long enough for the judge to lean back a hair, like dodging something invisible. Something felt wrong. Everyone sensed it. Everyone ignored it. Confusion gathered like quiet thunder. Insults usually ignite heat. Fear usually breaks posture. He offered neither. It felt like watching someone who'd been mocked so long that ridicule had become boring weather. Or someone with a reason nobody here could grasp. The room enjoyed the mob's easy thrill, laughing at a man without name, counsel, or advocates. One worker angled a phone to record. A second snapped a shot, captioned it "Self-Rep Live" with laughing emojis for the office chat. Center frame, his posture never sagged. Light touched the dried blood like a ribbon cinching memory. Another screen shared the scene with a caption about tickets to a show. None realized they were background extras, not audience. This wasn't about a defendant. It was about a system. Laughter carried like permitted smoke. The man remained statue still. A printed exam laid on the table, inviting every spectator to mark the wrong answers confidently. Ridicule would end, replaced by a silence nobody could name. A cop's voice broke through, bored disdain sharpening it. "Heard your type. Justice, human rights, big talk till cuffs. Then you play saint in court. Hilarious." Nods unfurled. A uniform nearby curled his lip. "Maybe he thinks he's some action hero. Bet he saw Denzel in the mirror." The room roared like a factory stamp pressing prejudice. The black man blinked exactly never. He didn't flinch. The air tightened, then snapped with another joke. An officer whipped out a phone. "Wait for this part." Night footage shook, audio crackling. A takedown. "Resisting!" shouted over compliance. A kick. Then black. Frozen frame. "That's it?" someone asked. "Nah," the officer grinned. "Corrupted there." Perfect timing, right? A clerk muttered, "Corrupted is the new edited." He stepped out, returned with morning footage, entrance clip prepped for a hilarious soundtrack. "Throw on the laughing filter TikTok beat. Viral by lunch," he snorted. Laughter surged, loud, messy, masks off. A secretary cried, mascara smearing. A captain whispered, "Bet he played a corpse on TV." A corpse with expressive eyes. In the corner, an older officer sat tight-lipped. "How long can he take it?" he muttered. The defendant, unbothered, mirrored them, reflective glass revealing who they were to themselves. Few could stand that sight for long. The judge ordered official body cam footage on the big screen. Lights dimmed. It played. Hands raised, a barked, "Resisting." Time to blows. Then blackout. Error 418. Frame corrupted. The room laughed, as if on cue. "Criminals hack cameras now," someone murmured. "He didn't need to," an officer laughed. "The system did it for him." Laughter thickened into a fog, not sound anymore. An assault with no fingerprints, but everyone's shared breath. Mockery replaced evidence. The man's stillness denied their aim. The performance hummed, authority pantomiming itself. "His stare feels off," a door guard whispered. "You're soft," another snorted. "Keep laughing." They did, loudly, greedily. A file slipped into plastic. Processed. Nobody asked how, who, or why. Techs were told to wipe originals pending review. The room didn't want truth, only the invisible okay to keep laughing, without naming a knife or wound. Every smirk, every share, every glib caption became its own exhibit. The man stayed upright, a verdict-shaped silhouette. The cut they'd started on his dignity, traced back toward their own pride. Drawing a line nobody wanted. Silence crept in. Not commanded, absorbed. They worried about being the last caught at laughing. He still hadn't moved. Eye contact alone reset postures. The judge straightened, tried steering back to procedure like gripping a skidding wheel. "Court-appointed counsel?" A firm shake, again for the record. "You'll represent yourself?" His voice arrived, low, steady, unperformed, with 4 words that hummed through the mic. "I will represent myself." The lid closed with stone certainty. A court reporter fumbled her pen. It rolled to his shoes. She reached, met his gaze. No threat, no heat, only a pressureless depth, like cold light from far underwater. Her hand shook once, then steadied. The judge tapped the mic, pulling decades of routine back onto the track. "Do you wish to present anything before the indictment?" He turned, that look a lead weight, placed gently on the table. His answer, nothing. A grad intern's pen slowed, then stalled. Silence had flattened legal language. He wrote in the margin, awkward and unpunctuated, "This is not normal, not defense, not condemnation, just a reminder that a chair outranked everyone." Procedure, the indictment, statements, cross became empty props. He didn't refuse the part, he refused the script's choreography. Power is sometimes the ability to make others doubt the roles they cling to for gravity. Glances flickered. Tactics, pressure, shaming, humiliation, met silence and evaporated. A swaggering officer now watched his watch. A clerk rummaged to avoid nothing. The judge paused mid-scribble, wondering whose color the pieces actually were. Systems know anger to suppress and resistance to break. They don't know quiet that refuses the usual levers. Confusion spread like static. No punches, no evidence fight. Only a sentence waiting for someone to underline it wrong. The scuff where the pen hit remained. A small mark with long memory. The judge exhaled and turned the next page. The man's last glance said everything. "From here on, you'll testify. About yourselves, not me." The hearing continued, but something shifted. Silence became the heaviest gavel. He sat unwavering, eyes forward. That steadiness carved a void, which others rushed to fill with smug certainty, believing noise meant dominance. A police officer rose, holding a file thin as a problem child's report card. "Let's revisit his background," he said, dripping sarcasm. "No job, no school, no home address." Heads nodded. Filthy water splashed. No one wiped. Law students, faces fresh, eyes already smug, howled. One with platinum hair slapped his thigh. "Who invited the clown? Is this court or improv class?" The reporter winced. They'd crossed decency and strutted away like it was clever. A modest man in back, pressed shirt, old glasses, turned and said, heavy with anger, "You're mocking someone's right to exist." Air froze a heartbeat. Then an officer approached. "Please leave." He went, dignity quiet but intact. From a corner, a faint buzz bloomed into music. A TikTok edit played. His entrance looped, zoomed, captioned with a parody hook. "Catwalk to court, silent like stone, failed interview face." Laughter and little whistles filled the chamber. He didn't react, didn't look, shift, or touch a phone. For a blink, something like a blade flashed behind his eyes, thin, fast, cold enough to chill anyone paying attention. The room kept laughing, heads tipped back. No one stopped the clip. No one asked who pressed play. Silence became permission. Contempt dressed itself as justice. The hearing didn't need verdicts. The crowd had already ruled with memes and chorus, not facts and thought. Then the door eased open. A woman entered, plain gray blouse, long skirt, beige flats worn at the edges. Nothing cinematic, except her walk, steady as a countdown. She didn't turn toward the bench or police. She went straight to him, a white envelope in hand. A guard blocked her. She flashed a deep blue card, Federal Liaison italicized. No questions. She placed the envelope before him, turned, and left, like a dissolving shadow. He studied it, unsurprised, like he'd expected it. He opened it, unfolded a frayed slip. One handwritten line, prepared, no signature. His mouth tightened. Alert replaced patience. A nearby officer scoffed, "Spy movie scraps." Theatrics. The man tucked the note back into its envelope, laid it like an exhibit no one dared edit. He returned to stillness. The water's surface looked unchanged. The stone had already sunk to the bottom. The judge's tone slowed, words shaped carefully. "Your previous occupation?" A longer pause, not hesitation, but calibration. He lifted his head. "Former federal investigative work." Nothing fancy. 4 words that cracked a hairline through plastered certainty. A young officer laughed dryly. "If you're FBI, I'm the bishop." Chuckles fluttered, small, skittish. In the tech booth, a request hit the system. A red line bled across the screen. Classified assets denied. Eyes narrowed. Higher credentials tried again. A warning tone. Classified data security code 40, then a designation. A gray-haired supervisor whispered, "Why would G44 be on a civilian file?" No one answered. No one was allowed to. G44 wasn't for local offenders. It protected files that shouldn't exist or existed because forgetting was policy. He didn't preen or confirm. Silence became a crack, spreading through every tile as minds asked dangerous questions quietly. Access lights flipped from green to amber to red. An account locked out of a sector colder than winter. The window snapped shut. A last message blinked. Access revoked, temporarily dropped. Fingers trembled on a plastic mouse. An internal email from Washington landed. No subject, no signature, 7 words only. Maintain current state. Do not ask. Don't. Verification strings checked out. The screen powered down. Blackness wasn't background anymore. It became a presence. A new figure appeared at the far door. The state police chief. Charcoal suit, high collar. 2 men in dark suits followed. Cropped hair, sunglasses indoors. They didn't introduce themselves. Presence delivered its own declaration. The judge stood immediately. A nearby officer stepped forward, caught one agent's eyes, and froze mid-stride. Gravity gathered around those three men like shifting air pressure. They stopped behind the defendant. No touch. No whisper. One agent produced a thin object badge, writ token, held 3 seconds, just long enough to leave no doubt. The loudest laugher stepped backward, murmuring, "What is happening?" The answer arrived as silence thick as barricades. Judge, police chief, 2 nameless suits. Nobody said authority. Authority breathed. The defendant still sat like a question mark, turned into a blade. He didn't move. Everyone else heard their heartbeat ricochet in the rafters. Miles away, a systems admin reached for the phone. A male voice, cut in first ring. "I know your question. Don't touch G44 again, and your region dies in 60 seconds. The line died like a guillotine. Somewhere between bureaucracy and shadow, a filament snapped. Definitions, law, order, secrecy, blurred like heat lines. The 2 suits' footsteps echoed faintly. Online, the hearing turned into snackable clips, short, edited, absurd, easy to swallow, easier to misremember. A TikTok titled "Silent Thug, Where's He Really From?" hit 1 million views under 12 hours. Slow zooms, sarcastic rap, clown face filters. Courtroom laughter looped beneath a flood of laughing emojis. Pinned comment, "Guilty by face alone." "Anyone quiet in court is guilty," another wrote. Someone posted a villain meme beside his face, "Society's enemy." None there had felt the air grow dense or watched the police chief flinch backward from a look. Amid the noise, one comment appeared. No badge, few likes. "You just shot in the dark." 3 dots flashed and vanished. Private account. For those versed in sealed protocols, those words sounded less warning than prelude. A few recognized the sign, went quiet. Reddit mods mulled connections to a G44 classification. 3-dot encryption? The thread vanished within minutes. The poster lost access. The crowd kept remixing laughter with sneeze effects and fake gunshots. Across town, a government comms director watched the clip again. 30th play. No smile, no fury, just a typed access code request. Denied. Protocol G44 active. He rose and left, screen looping those unblinking eyes without sound. Elsewhere, a platform engineer flagged odd traffic at Silent Thug. Encrypted IPs, military grade, all targeting one content cluster, mocking videos of the defendant. A report filed. No reply. The man at the center, aware or indifferent, didn't twitch. He'd run operations in silence before. Crowds aren't for arguing. They're data sets. Their laughter becomes evidence. Time-stamped, indexed, retrievable. Some smiles live inside plots, not selfies. Some people aren't here to be liked, only to press buttons. The 3 dots vanished from the web, but not from history. They waited, patient, to become period and stop. Then came the call. No ring. A dry click in the judicial coordination room sounded like a safety releasing. The duty officer, mid-40s now, 3 administrations experienced, glanced at the console. Classified secure line. No code, no prefix. She answered. A voice, precise, spineward, said 13 words. Maintain personnel status. No sentencing. No transfer. No judgment. Then silence. She knew this touch. Power beyond ordinary ladders. She faxed internal security. The police chief read, sweat purling at the collar despite chilled air. He whispered to his aide, "Who are we even trying?" No answer. In chambers, the aging judge dialed an emergency internal line. "Are we inside a federal ethics test?" he asked his assistant. Silence. The line cut from above. Nobody here controlled anything anymore. And everyone felt it. No one touched the file. No one said prepared. No one uttered G44. Their questions weren't about guilt. They were about themselves. Who had they been? Laughing. Who was watching? Would everything become testimony later? In a nameless building's upper floor, analysts logged every micro-reaction, pulse deviations, posture shifts, eye movements. No debate, no narrative. just flags. On the big display, the defendant's face appeared with a single identifier, TIE0. Across courtroom and surveillance center, comprehension aligned. Some people don't wield power, they are power. Some sentences aren't spoken to be enforced. Some calls echo forever in those who heard once and never forget. Impatience spread in uniforms like an itch. Training leaned toward force. A cluster of officers advanced, gloves creaking, boots thumping. "Stand up," one snapped. "Don't make us put hands on you." No judge intervened. No counsel objected. He opened a black briefcase. A soft click cut the room cleanly in two. Movements slow, unhurried. He drew metal, precise, dustless, unmistakably official. A badge with silver rim, deep blue field, eagle lifted like a warning. No one cracked a joke. The name on the badge stopped breath. Marcus Hale, Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. The wrong man had been mocked. The highest seat in their system had been placed in the defendant's chair. A plainclothes agent in the gallery stood and bowed, deliberate, military deep. Masks slid off faces. Arrogance evaporated. Those who laughed froze into hard reflections of themselves. One click had flattened their imagined elevation mercilessly. Hale didn't stand. He turned his eyes around the room, neither vengeful nor forgiving, just exact. Then one sentence, trimmed to bone. "You should have stayed as silent as I did." Silence sealed like ice around throats. A pen clattered. A phone hovered, camera unpressed by a shaking thumb. The judge whispered, "No way," twice, chapped lips sticking. An officer swayed, sweat chilling his neck, pride unraveling like old rope in rain. Every earlier jeer came back as lashes. Careers, reputations, futures exposed. The doors stood open, but nobody moved. They understood. Hale hadn't been on trial. They had. Their nature had confessed on video, unrehearsed and uncoached. No weapons drawn, no apologies issued. Words were counterfeit currency now. Hale's stillness became a mirror, showing faces that looked powerful yesterday and small this minute. The lights felt colder than the tile beneath their boots. He was no victim and no savior. He'd simply waited long enough for vultures to peck each other clean, mistaking silence for weakness. A single reveal erased a stage they'd built from smugness and noise. The aftershock of, "You should have stayed silent," kept humming. Hale stepped out alone. No escort, no backward glance. The real work began outside. In Washington, the Hoover building pulsed quietly as screens filled line by line. First line, plain font, reevaluation order. All state law enforcement agencies, immediate label. No sirens, no alarms. Just conference shoes crossing carpet, internal calls stacking, eyes unblinking, at feeds flowing cold and exact. Emergency meeting. No notice, no decline button. Senior FBI rows sat wordless. The morning footage played uncut. Every smirk magnified to evidence. At 4:13 a.m., a message left the secure federal net to a proud state chief. His screen read, "Report to FBI headquarters." No delay, no counsel. Words sliced pride like steel. Nobody asked why. Everyone understood who had sat under those lights and who could redraw the boundaries overnight without speeches. At the local command center, surveillance flickered. Within 7 minutes, control transferred. No code from leadership required. Techs in black uniforms, no name tags, arrived like ghosts, scanned devices, and the network obeyed. Authorized, FBI Oversight Commission, hard drives sealed, personnel files, body cam vaults, private comms, internal internet dimmed to black, every privilege rerouted toward Washington. Territory shrank to a lobby rug. Power felt like a coat, 2 sizes too large now. No pressers, no statements. Mid-level commanders received private notes. Jurisdiction temporarily revoked. Federal interference under review. Questions would be flagged. Threats unnecessary. A single system code silenced a building more effectively than guns. The chief's keycard failed at his own door. his screen locked under tiered clearance. "I'm in charge," he told a guard. "Eyes down," the guard repeated, "following directives." Power's bitterness was discovering nobody needed him anymore. The mocked silence from yesterday now authored every override. In shadows, an agent watched a chart, thousands of accounts disconnected, no editing rights, no backups, internal email stuck, a red ribbon scrolled, "System held, federal custody." The blow landed without a single knock, no arrests, no SWAT noise. Jurisdiction, not bullets, made the ground tremble. Upstairs, a list of agencies under review grew like a tolling bell for credibility shriveling at daylight. Files re-encrypted, tagged. Priority Review 5, Marcus Hale. Nobody said his name aloud. Everyone knew. He spoke no public words. The system moved instead. In rooms that once laughed, lights cooled and hands found nothing to do. Morning didn't break with sirens, but with suspensions, pages folded on desks of every thigh slapper, walls of honor soured to plaster. Pride stared at reflections that said only 3 words with awful certainty. You were exposed. Homes filled with quiet. An older escort leader unlocked his door and met disappointment's stare. His wife shook her head. Their 16-year-old watched the grainy clip and quoted Hale, perfectly clear. "You should have stayed silent." He reached for the phone. His daughter pulled away. "Do you even know who he is?" she asked, ice-eyed. He'd spent a career silencing strangers. Now truth flattened him at the dinner table without raising its voice. Morning news needed no hyperbole. Banners read, "FBI director treated like a common black defendant. Justice's keepers humiliated by the law's mirror." The crawl churned not to inform, but to insist. "Remember exactly what you did." A leaked internal clip showed a young officer chewing gum, laughing at the meme, calling the morning classic drama queen stuff. The room roared. The internet poured accelerant, screenshot by screenshot, caption by caption, consequence by consequence. Headlines dragged names into daylight. Explanations only fed flames. A baby-faced officer sat in a bathroom, screen glowing with the very clip he'd proudly shared. The FBI didn't need warrants. Strangers' glances delivered punishment enough. Shame required no handcuffs, only recognition. Hale gave no interview, wrote no blog, delivered no speech. The absence itself weighed a ton. Every minute he didn't appear added pounds to those wishing for an easy absolution. Systems collapse under self-committed acts. In lecture halls, a law professor replayed the clip for ethics. A student confessed, "I laughed once." He paused the video on Hale's eyes. Calm, unyielding. The room learned quiet, properly. Hale's silence became a funeral trumpet for lazy certainty. The idea that mockery is a right and authority is a punchline. One badge, one sentence, timed right, shattered illusions into shards too sharp to sweep. No agents knocked. Society did the heavy lifting. Reputation eroded digitally, locally, painfully. News kept circling, but Hale's quiet wasn't an ending. It was intermission. Behind curtains, the machinery set for its next movement. In a modest apartment, an investigative journalist unfolded a laptop behind layered encryption. Her name, Nina Park, older now, early 40s, allergic to permission. She hadn't found a file. She'd found an engine humming. The header froze her. "Interlock 0, do not smite." Marcus Hale, former commander of the Bureau's top internal purification unit, 12 years shaking rot from federal agents and local departments. The blade in the sleeve whispered softly. The shock wasn't the role. It was the present title, Executive Director, Federal Internal Affairs Investigation Oversight Division. No chart listed it. No org memo admitted it. An invisible node with reach beyond civics textbooks. Another attachment, direct oversight reports. Tier 1 clearance. Names, agencies, evidence, pictures, statements, internal recordings, unchopped. Some departments normal on paper sat marked Active Surveillance Level 3. A red stamp closed a dossier. In progress. A note beneath. Allow subject to engage. No interference. Record natural behavior. Nina understood. The courtroom wasn't a mistake. It was an experiment, nationwide, monitored, precise, starring a lead who barely needed a line. Nina published. Major outlets moved. CNN called him America's moral gatekeeper. NBC asked if he was on trial, who was judged. Late night cut sharper. Hale wasn't humiliated. He let them humiliate themselves. The echo stuck deep. Headquarters swallowed the message. Every time his name popped on screen, stomachs twisted. He wasn't just director. He'd architected the watchtower now tracking them. No hotline existed, no official memo, only a tightening silence. At a Texas Reform Summit, a veteran senator rasped, "We don't need a giant mirror. We need someone quiet long enough to hear ourselves." He added steady, "I'm not afraid of Hale. I'm afraid we need him." International headlines arrived. BBC called it Modern America's Greatest Moral Experiment. Der Spiegel said the accused measured society. Al Jazeera added, "When blackness stops excusing disdain, ask how long justice has been a costume." Identity didn't require a podium. Consequences carried it. No pressers, just sliced complacency. When a nation starts asking moral questions, the answers hide in reactions of those being watched, not in speeches from the watcher. Truth divides quietly, those who hush to learn and those who hush because nothing remains. After the flood of takes and clicks elsewhere, inside Quantico, a classroom began with one video. The hearing without a verdict. The sound startled in the quiet. Cadets stared. The instructor didn't sermonize. He let footage breathe. Hale's eyes, officers' smirks, students' sneers. The badge reveal. The sentence that cinched throats shut with engineering precision. No phones, no chuckles. When it ended, stone stillness lingered. A cadet asked, honest and unsure, "Why didn't he speak earlier?" The instructor's voice barely lifted, a pebble in a lake. "Because your laughter is the evidence." Back in the courthouse timeline, training kicked in again. A few officers edged forward out of habit, gloves tightened. "Stand now," one repeated louder. Nobody defended him aloud. The script reached for the same old choreography. The briefcase click rewrote the scene. Silver rim, blue field, eagle. Authority condensed. The badge didn't roar, it clarified. Laughter discovered a cliff. Even posture remembered protocol. Reverence arrived like muscle memory from boot camp. Outside communications teams searched for damage control. There wasn't a message problem. There was a character problem. The nation had listened to its own echo, then met the wall of a man who held mirrors professionally. The officers who'd joked found their inboxes emptied and credentials red-flagged. Friends stopped answering. The friendly diner table felt hostile. Laughter doesn't age well when time-stamped. It turns from spark to evidence quickly. Hale, older than rumor by a few years, walked out alone. The steps didn't bounce. They landed like periods. He hadn't argued innocence. He had audited a system. The grade posted itself without any bell curve. In city offices, IT trees bent. Federal hold banners painted screens red. Supervisors whispered in hallways that suddenly felt too narrow. "He's only one man," someone said. The reply came like winter. "He's not one man." Departments treated memos like live wires. A handful tried jokes in private. The room stiffened. Every cheap laugh now sounded like a confession, rehearsed too many times for anyone to believe ignorance anymore. The law school that giggled earlier assigned the hearing in a seminar, Bias and the Body. Students who'd snickered scribbled notes with small pen strokes. Someone asked about precedent. The professor said, "We're drafting it right now." An op-ed compared Hale's stillness to a pressure suit. No theatrics, just containment. "Most power shouts," it read. "Some power waits." It concluded, he didn't demand respect. He exposed the absence of it where it mattered. A city council scheduled an oversight session at noon discovered half its footage locked. "Jurisdictional preservation," the banner read. The chair tapped a pencil, not sure if she envied or feared federal calm. Probably both. The intern who wrote "not normal" kept the notebook. It felt heavier now, a receipt for a moment when mocking felt safer than thinking. He began underlining names he'd laughed near. A different education took root. Families argued in kitchens. "He should have said who he is," an uncle claimed. A niece answered, "You should have waited to know who he is." Silence again. That gavel requires no bench. It strikes ribs from within. In another precinct, a baby lieutenant rehearsed an apology to a mirror, then closed his mouth. There wasn't an apology large enough to cover what had been said with relish and captured without permission. The media pivoted to bigger narratives, oversight, reform, protocols, but the public's appetite fixed on a smaller, colder truth. It wasn't a system glitch. It was ordinary behavior, undisturbed by conscience, until a badge snapped it. Hale's name threaded community meetings run by women who'd filed complaints for years. Their faces did not soften. "We've said this," one stated. "Now that he said nothing and proved it, start listening like we're him." In Washington, a practical memo circulated. Codify a playback requirement, uncut time-synced review before disciplinary calls. The sentence looked boring. That's how real change sneaks in, underlined in dull, sturdy ink. An older agent poured coffee for a new class and said, "Respect the silent ones. They're either learning or judging. Either way, your performative confidence won't help." The recruit nodded like he'd touch a live wire. The courtroom's echo remained, ribcage stored, not easily exhaled. Hale's exit didn't end it. He'd moved the location, from benches and feeds to desks and mirrors. That's where experiments really finish. The places nobody thinks are laboratories. The Hoover building ran steady at night. No klaxons, footsteps, calls, screens assembling evidence in neat columns. The first reevaluation orders felt surgical, not theatrical. Paper's whisper carried farther than a press conference roar. Inside a glass conference room, nobody postured. Playback talked. The smirk from a 40-something sergeant looked different at 40 inches. The laugh from a law student sounded thinner after breakfast. Perspective is a harsh editor. Another encrypted summons left the network. A regional star who'd once said, "We don't answer to Washington," packed quietly. Pride makes more noise going in than out. Leaving humility wears soft shoes and keeps eyes down. The command center hard drives weren't trophies. They were mirrors. Every scrubbed minute now existed twice, locally sealed and federally held. Erase buttons felt like decorations. People stopped pretending they were tools. Supervisors traded sentences that started with "we thought" and ended with nothing. The hallway air felt thinner. Someone whispered, "If he'd just told us early." The answer slipped under the door. "If you'd just listened early." A training deck titled "Underreaction" defined a tactic. Refuse bait. Deny footage its preferred villain. The case study used the hearing as a spine. The last slide read, "Calm is the conspiracy they never prepared for." Headlines cooled. Policies warmed. The crowd drifted toward a new spectacle. People moved on until the mirror turned in their direction unexpectedly at work, at school, at home. Laughter slowed in many rooms without announcement. A field office held a town hall. Questions circled trust. A woman asked, "How do we know quiet isn't condescension?" The Sacy answered, "You don't. That's why consistency matters. Quiet plus fairness over time earns belief." In one precinct, lockers shut softly. Tie clips disappeared. Corners where jokes used to bloom went barren. One officer deleted a folder labeled memes. It felt like sweeping a porch after a storm finally confessed itself. A legal podcast recapped the timeline, every timestamp, every turn, ending on the sentence that cut through. "You should have stayed silent." The host paused. "He meant them. We should consider whether he also meant us." A teenager in civics class raised her hand. "Isn't silence dangerous?" The teacher nodded. "Yes, so is talking without thinking. The trick is knowing which one you're using today and why." The room sat with that. The reporters who'd chased Hale for a quote were kept getting the same answer. None. A producer pitched a segment called "The Man Who Didn't Speak." The editor said, "He spoke. We weren't the audience. Back at the courthouse, the bench got a new cushion. Everyone pretended details help. They sometimes do. But cushions don't brace for mirror weight, and mirrors don't care about upholstery when truth steps on the frame." A senior clerk updated templates. No phones, no soundtrack, no live edits during sessions. The rules weren't elegant, they were necessary. On the margin, she wrote, "Start with ordinary decency." Practical revolutions read like that. In small offices, mid-managers practiced saying, "We were wrong." Some succeeded, shoulders lighter. Others tried, tasted metal, and settled for a memo. Culture keeps receipts, not saying it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Suspension letters yellowed slightly at edges. Their recipients discovered how quiet homes get at 2 in the afternoon. They wandered through rooms collecting old applause that no longer belonged to them, if it ever did. A precinct's Hall of Honor lost a plaque to review. The gap showed fresh paint. Visitors stared at the absence longer than any name. That's shame's shape. Negative space that teaches better than speeches. A sergeant practiced a line. "I forgot he was human." He stopped, started again. "I pretended." The second sentence landed truer. He let it sit in air. Growth requires owning verbs you hoped belonged to strangers. The 16-year-old daughter texted a friend, "He isn't a hero, he's proof." The reply, "Proof of what?" She typed, "That some adults need a mirror the size of a courtroom before they'll see themselves." A morning anchor asked if the nation learned anything. The analyst said, "We learned it's easier to laugh than listen until silence hands you receipts. After that, you either grow or pretend growth isn't necessary." The gum-chewing officer deleted his account. He changed gyms. He kept his head down. People recognized him anyway. Shame travels faster than credentials and lingers longer than comments. It sits in grocery aisles beside cereal. A community organizer sighed. Relief, braided to anger. "We've said this," she repeated. "I'm glad it's heard. I'm furious it took him." Hale's name worked like a key, opening a door that should have never been locked. At headquarters, a lab printed a guidance sheet. Preserve original. Create parallel chain. Mandatory independent review. It wasn't exciting. It was survival. Professional humility in bullet points, stapled boring in the best way. Hale didn't sign it. His signature was everywhere without ink. Procedures shifting. Eyes recalibrating. Laughter thinning. Sometimes the mark of leadership is a shaped absence. People step around it or fill it with better behavior. In Quantico, the cadet waited for an answer that proved comforting. The instructor offered none. "Because your laughter was what he needed to see most clearly," he said. The room finally understood the curriculum's true title. The state police chief arrived in Washington right on time. He sat outside a door built to mute. Inside, the clock didn't tick. In some halls, time is an instrument, not a measurement, and somebody plays it carefully. The hearing room at home got new signs. No recordings, no sarcasm-laced disruptions. A deputy asked, "Isn't that obvious?" The clerk said, "Not yesterday." The deputy accepted the point the way aspirin accepts headaches. Law students posted think pieces apologizing in clever prose. The public skimmed. The only apology that mattered wasn't words. It was the gap between a reflex to sneer and a choice to wait 10 seconds longer. A retired judge wrote that procedure survives on humility. "The law is a harness," he said. "Mockery cuts it." He admitted he'd laughed at defendants too. Confession landed tenderly, power repenting without spectacle. Hale's unit reviewed a fresh complaint. Nobody raised voices. Files moved, habits slowed. The difference between theater and work is posture. The nation, pieces of it, started sitting straighter inside invisible chairs. Nina Park typed an epilogue. He never performed. He measured. She closed the laptop and stared at her window. City lights sparkled like times on a timeline, markers for days that looked ordinary until playback. Op-eds cooled into policy memos. Social feeds replaced rage with recipes. That's fine. Revolutions shouldn't live online forever. They should live in rules, instincts, and the long, unphotogenic business of not failing people. A rookie pinned a note in his locker. Say less. See more. Another wrote, never ask the crowd who you are. They shook hands like soldiers before a march that isn't dramatic, only necessary. An officer met a complaint with, tell me everything, and meant it. A clerk caught herself smiling at a defendant's shoes and stopped. Tiny edits stacked into something sturdier than slogans. That's how buildings stop leaning. A professor taught timestamps as ethics. Don't cut moments, collect them. A student muttered, but clips go viral. The reply, so does rot. The class laughed, gently this time, at themselves. An acceptable audience for once. The courthouse bench outlasted the scandal. It always does, but the wood remembers weight. Every time someone sits, another small lesson settles in the grain, ready to release if laughter starts sounding like permission again. A mother told her 6-year-old, he wasn't bad. The boy asked, then why were they mean? She answered, because they thought it was safe. He asked, is it? She said, not anymore. Try not to forget. A city memo banned in-room viral editing. Someone joked, we needed a memo? Someone else said, yes. The joke died politely, buried where necessary jokes go, under the steady weight of grown-up responsibility returning. Night guardians cleaned floors where boots had swaggered. The polish smelled like citrus and second chances. Even tile benefits when people tread lightly. Buildings can't teach, but they can glow when class finally begins. The analyst who first flagged Ash Silent Thug took a long lunch. He watched pigeons navigate traffic with more care than the internet gave strangers. He returned to his desk and wrote better alerts with simpler words. In the old courtroom, a new defendant sat, nameless like weather. A clerk looked longer before assuming anything. The judge's throat cleared without sarcasm. Silence entered differently now. Less entitlement, more listening for actual sound. A training memo added a line. If you're laughing, ask why. If you can't answer well, stop. Plain language travels farther than Latin. Someone circled it in pen and wrote, our mother tongue. The two suits who had stood behind Hale returned to other hallways. They looked ordinary, until rooms remembered them. The best authority doesn't loom. It resets the way people choose sentences in rooms without microphones. The analysts logged their final physiological flag for the day. They didn't cheer. They shut down screens like surgeons washing hands, ritual and respect. Some labs measure chemicals. Theirs measured conscience under fluorescent hum. At Quantico, the cadet's question kept echoing in empty corridors. Why didn't he speak? Because the room had to hear itself first. Sometimes the lesson is the sound you make when no one claps. The instructor wrote 2 words on the board. Prove listening. He faced the class. Quiet can be a weapon, he said. Use it carefully, or you might end up cutting yourself. Pens moved with deliberate strokes. Playback paused on Hale's eyes. Older now by rumor, steady by design. The screen went dark. No applause. The room exhaled together. A new reflex. Outside, the flag stirred like a page turned gently before reading. Because your laughter was the one thing he needed to see most clearly, the instructor finished. The cadet closed his notebook. A bell rang. Somewhere far away. Class didn't end. It finally, properly, began. Not from fear, because everyone finally understood. Laughter is the cheapest reflex when we don't understand, don't care, or won't admit someone surpasses us. Their laughter became evidence, needing no cross, witnesses, or statute. Hale never needed defenders. He wasn't debating anyone. He needed the room to unmask itself, and it did flawlessly. Behind him, the instructor's final slide appeared, stark, white words on black. Justice isn't said, it's revealed. No translation, no scribbling. Each word branded memory, not a slogan, but an epitaph for honor discounted by mockery. Class dismissed, yet no one rose. In back, a 28-year-old cadet snapped her pen, whispering confession. I once posted that parody in our private group. No one scolded her. There were no absolutions left. Recognition hurts most when it's your posture, Your glance, your timing that sells you out. The instructor left without turning. In his eyes, a hard-earned hope that this shame sets deep, so badges later are worn by minds that no attitude gets judged before authority ever does, quietly, invisibly, often by those once written off. In admin, a new notice went up, unbolded, unredlined. Beginning next week, every cadet must review the Marcus Hale courtroom footage in ethics foundations. Beneath a small note, no debate, remember. The hallway to lecture rooms, once echoing with future cop laughter, sounded like a columbarium. Only weighted steps remained, dignity hammered in by a 10-minute film. There was no hero here. Hale never wanted the title. He sought no applause, earned no staged gratitude. His silence let a generation reveal its face. Justice comes from brave restraint and deliberate timing. In one corner of the Academy's honor case, photos of past agents, century-spanning accolades. Someone added a new frame, no portrait, no bio, just a grainy monochrome when Hale lifted his badge in court. The caption, almost whisper small, a man who stayed quiet so a nation could hear itself. A week later, Americans woke to a headline that slapped without hands, bold against white, the filthiest trial. The victim was the FBI director. No subhead required. Meeting rooms turned morgue still. It wasn't insult, it was indictment, inked and undeniable. The paper didn't shout, it simply showed, and showing did everything necessary. The Times, the Post, the Atlantic ran the same head, untouched, untrimmed. Drafts approved once, nobody tweaked a syllable. Papers that usually weigh opinion now mirrored swords, protecting nobody, sparing nobody, scorching truth. The city's mayor, trial's jurisdiction, called an emergency session inside 24 hours. Packed room, zero voices, air roaring cold, still suffocating. He stepped up, chalk pale, already knowing second terms vanish faster than elevators. I apologize to America, he rasped, gravel-throated. No claps, no scripted rebuttals. It wasn't to one man, it was to a country that had finally seen its government's face unmasked by its own breath. That night, an unaffiliated federal figure sat on a national broadcast. Tombstone dark backdrop, no prompter, no spin. One sentence, then exit. We just took a test and failed. It traveled like unsourced verdict. Bridges don't need bombs. Age and pressure reveal fractures disguised by paint. The storm wasn't scandal. It was a silent man, a presence heavy enough to halt a nation and force inspection. People asked how long we'd lived inside an illusion dressed like justice. Hale said nothing more. Silence reset the definition of power, not to dominate, but to compel an entire system to self-audit. When politics couldn't salvage dignity and media couldn't salvage image, money became the refuge. This time, money left too. Sponsors, banks, funds withdrew. No statements, just stoppages. Upgrades froze. Contracts canceled. Logos quietly removed. One bank asked to be unlisted from community programs. No one wanted co-branding with what headlines called America's Mirror. Online, the work we failed trended within hours. No tags at Hale. He never plays to the stage. Government inboxes filled with damage control. There's none when the wall cracks from inside. Legislative aides begged crisis firms. Nobody touched facts too clear for spin. Law schools issued one assignment, no quiz. Analyze the Hale trial's systemic collapse, legal and ethical consequences. Not for right answers, only confrontation. Nobody dared submit half measures. In a mighty lobbying boardroom, budgets erased. One question replaced them. What are we gripping now? No response required. Everyone knew. Faces that mocked once, minimizers, deniers, found mirrors waiting. Ethics, not appearance. Media didn't kill, politics didn't kill. When both and money turn, sandcastles fold themselves. Curtains weren't ripped down. Hale never touched them. He let hands that deemed themselves worthy tug gently until fabric surrendered. Papers landed like stones in wells. Nobody flipped pages. The headline alone branded foreheads. Filthiest trial. The victim was the director. Washington had no space for unthinking silence. Deep below, DOJ, DHS, FBI shared a table. Deliberate quiet, their only certainty. The eraser hummed, unseen and tireless. They read lists, names removed without notice, hearing, or verdict. Just red-coded commands. Familiar careers, conference laureates on fairness, now stamped. Non-operational, removed from data chain. One gate joke official stared at his own outline. No microphones, no recordings, visuals deadened by presidential protocol. The agenda read, Interagency Briefing, National Morality Experiment Review. Everyone understood we weren't here to listen. We were here to acknowledge our shadow. The room had no windows, LEDs bleaching faces like unburied cadavers. A DHS lawyer read Hale's report excerpts. A system is fair only when it reacts to its own nakedness. Then Appendix C. An illegal leak, annotated meme comparing Hale to cosplay spy. Source, DHS internal IP. Eyes swung toward counsel. No one spoke, yet verdicts lived behind irises. A technician gasped, blocked login from a former DOJ advisor, the same man who once said, "That silent guy isn't worth our attention." His access, iced. Cyber behavior flagged. Non-compliant with moral response protocol. Shadow tracking engaged. Cache dredged an old training clip. Hale mocked as a video game villain. Fake quotes synced. Watermark. Deputy FBI official screened publicly at year-end. That deputy now restricted from federal data. Pending. No one reopened files. They'd already been archived to shame. A screen listed. Special review. By executive order. Beneath, a name nobody dared pronounce. Marcus Hale. Everyone read it, understood it. This wasn't a person, it was a power definition beyond printed charts. Annotation beside the name. Tier 0 oversight. Moral test unit. No operational limitations. The phrase vacuumed oxygen from lungs. No stop order. No supervisory lid. Both DOJ and DHS reduced to watching watchers. A folder drifted hand to hand, whisper quiet, inside people whose measured behavior scored negative under Hale's test period. Some names X'd, gone. Others ringed red, under observation. One belonged to the eye contact policy enforcer. He'd laughed. If he talks with eyes, I'll smirk. Now highest stress response at hearing Hale's name. A symposium clip resurfaced. 2-year-old talk. Hale's image, slowed and blurred. How to spot power delusions. Laughter. That speaker resigned. No letter, no farewell. The system emailed, "You are no longer required to return." Analytics reported 400,000 sarcastic posts about Hale on internal networks early in testing. The phrase, "This guy thinks he's a ghost," topped merchandise, mugs, tees, keyboard stickers. Now AI reverse-matched posts to admin histories, quantifying regional moral drift. A joke hardened into a recruiting metric. Memory revived a checkpoint where Hale's biometrics failed. A guard said, "People without traces aren't trustworthy." He bragged next day. The office laughed. Now his trace froze. Emergency protocol. Observed. Not punished. A DOJ grandee, once sure nobody outranked him, leaned forward, knuckles whitening. Does he plan to keep testing us? The question wasn't curiosity. It was bait. Prediction tempts fools. Hale leaves no footprints. An FBI rep rolled a pen, well-deep eyes reading the floor. A small nod, neither yes nor no. Message clear, if you're still asking, you haven't noticed when the hour started. The meeting moved like remote control in absent hands. Next slide, no text. A U.S. map, tinted light red in patches. Unnamed states, obvious to those trained. Places hiding misconduct under rugs labeled procedure. Here, Hal probably embedded sensors, people triggers, waiting for one cackle, one glance, one casual slight to fire the next verdict. In a southern state notorious for protest crackdowns, an old joke resurfaced. A tech had posted a satire, "The man who demands justice," with a stare. He sat present, suit damp with sweat, eyes fused to the red glow, branding his state's throat. "Laugh once, ruin forever," his supervisor whispered. A DHS assistant breathed, "No response plan. Our models collapsed." Across the table, a colleague's face held terminal news pallor. Limits unknown. Fear grows there. People rarely fear power. They fear power that doesn't need display. Hale became the unseasonal cold-peeling masks, political, legal, ethical, in one pass. Special inspection provisions opened a lawful digital archive. Hale requested camera log and histories for county detention centers notorious for interrogations over limit. A senior manager once laughed in his face. Fieldwork isn't ethics 101. His name now on silent audit. 6 months of behavior piped to an AI unknown to him. A clip showed him slamming a table, ordering suppression footage removed promptly. That scene entered deviant slides inside Hale's original program. A DOJ analyst labeled Hale the monk in a suit, pairing him with detective tropes, 1,700 reshares. His account now temporarily closed for verification. He shrugged publicly, eyes sprinted panic. Every login demanded triple biometrics. After success, one line replaced dashboards. "You are under surveillance." Nearby, DHS's admin director read a red-stamped file of field notes from Hale's direct reports. The theme repeated, "Don't ask why. Watch. Withdraw when necessary." Hale had raised a quiet generation. No complaints, only collection. As the nation trembled around a verdictless trial, he simply didn't show. No statements, no posts. His absence roared. Chairs didn't scrape. Temper stayed leashed. The meeting orbited an absent body, like small moons tidally locked by a black gravity they dared not name. Marcus Hale, the defendant who said little, centered an interagency review none dared title. A year earlier, a DOJ star grinned at silent footage. "If he's truly an agent, shut the Bureau down." That quote became an article header on silent resistance syndrome. He later slashed ethics budgets, perfectionist power games. Now he stared at Hale's name like blinking invited lightning. Fear replaced stance. Another report rolled. Seminar video with Hale, waiting outside a door he wasn't invited through. Young officers pretended to stumble, making him a jinx. One later woke to a breach. Life inverted. Emails, access logs, comm histories, all pulled. The others scrubbed feeds without instructions. The fright wasn't Hale. It was the realization every harmless joke had become living evidence in a trial without defendant. "We need a media roadmap," someone pleaded. Another scoffed, acid-voiced. "Media isn't the issue. We are. You think he weaponizes press? He weaponizes silence. It exposes us." Nobody argued with verdicts. A slide blinked with a single line. "Not everyone is a target. Only those convinced they never are." No attribution needed. Everyone knew it from Hale's ethics program taped to his old door. Someone once laughed at that A4 printout, calling it intellectualized instinct. They resigned. No letter. The ledger marked inactive since. Silence adopted the rest. Outreach felt radioactive. No one dialed. Nobody asked why. Years back, HR denied Hale a promotion. Lacks leadership through interaction. Now, the non-interactive man conducted an orchestra of hush, quieting machinery by reflecting its appetite for noise back upon itself. Retaliation wasn't action. It was architecture. Conditions where everyone indicts themselves. The meeting ended without chairs scraping, without goodbyes. Eyes flicked like moths. Am I watched? Am I next? He needed nothing else. The system had trapped itself. Every phrase a tripwire. Every opinion a flare for Hale's next designation. Washington's door closed on no applause, no summary, only a cold drip down ranks nationwide. Top-of-chain peacocks peered around like tagged deer. Consequence didn't arrive with sirens. It appeared as lack. Monday at Central City PD, 3 brass didn't attend briefing. No notices, no coverage, just absence, desks untouched, coffee still steaming. Their personnel files vanished. HR clicked, a red sentence blinked. Access revoked. Tiered clearance required. Those who'd scoffed at Hale lounging silently now faced administrative vacuum. One had given speeches about cleaning up nameless black protesters. Hale stood nearby that day. Nobody remembered. Cameras did. A clip caught him carded like a suspect while merely taking notes. Hands shaking, the question carried a hunter's mood. That officer's name no longer on charts. Another scoffed at rumors of federal ties, pounding the table. No TV drama in court. He ordered body cams combed for blemishes. None showed. He asked editors to add fake screams to escort footage for a year and gag. Now the footage is gone. So is he. Phones ring. Nobody answers from his shadow. One officer barked in Hale's face. No seat for delusional men. Caught by the judge's mic, yet missing from transcript. He shared the audio anyway. Bet he thinks he's some silent agent. Later, traced. No formal discipline, but his role migrated off administrative books. Under position, 2 letters remained. Pending. A data analyst remembered Hale wandering in during evacuation checks. She snapped him from behind. Captioned, "Stranger can't read signage." When identity surfaced, she tried deleting. The cache kept it. That image starred in a module called Internal Arrogance Culture. She took 3 days off, quietly. HR retried the locked profiles. Same red wall. After 3 bad password attempts, a monotone internal call arrived. Stop. Do not try again. He hung up slowly. Eyes around him slid away. Something moved. A noticeless purge. No reasons, no magistrate. Morning names, afternoon ghosts. The Tuesday briefing room that nicknamed Hale Ghostman became an empty zone. An old drive coughed up a photo. Someone had filtered Hale's back with granite effect. Caption, "Waiting for him to speak calcified my brain." That employee was nominated for federal training once. Now records gone, like a road erased overnight. A past desk staffer once denied Hale admission for dress code. Later she bragged online. He stared through the glass like waiting for somebody to decide for me. The chat cackled. Background mics paraphrased her story perfectly. In Hale's unreleased notes, the incident reappeared. Weeks later, she was temporarily reassigned for emergency retraining. Reason, unclear level G8. Nobody asked. Everyone understood the grammar. In headquarters parking, cars sat like unclaimed bodies. Tag scans failed. User does not exist. A guard whispered, "They weren't fired. They were erased." His partner nodded. Truth that doesn't need teeth. On the honor wall, a captain's photo vanished. The one who yelled, "Clear a lane for the lead clown," in that courthouse. The frame's pale rectangle stared back like a ghostly bandage. An aide nearby requested ground floor transfer. Less scrutiny, more hallway. In logistics, an access card thunked onto a desk, revoked by Central, its entire history wiped. Anonymous chat pinged, "The Bureau doesn't punish. It erases, no replies." No tracebacks. It felt like the network itself stared. A deputy who joked, "If he can investigate me, I'll be Attorney General," saw his account frozen within 5 days. Email locked. Folders re-encrypted, under special authority. No one asked if he still worked here. Only his nameplate vanished at midnight. Unscrewed, ghosts avoiding camera glare. Some reassigned. Destination unspecified. Personnel fields replaced names with glyphs. No receiving unit, no reporting officer, no transfers. A clerk asked about a deputy's disappearance. Her supervisor's stare pinned. "Ask again. You're next." She deleted his calendar block. Certain rooms developed chair taboos, untouchable seats, not for respect, but fear. Wrong chair, wrong file, wrong tone. Tomorrow you're missing from databases. Nobody needs firing when a system decides vanishing is cleaner. No paper-reported purge, ranks whispered anyway. He isn't responding. He's erasing ink from maps with no eraser. Former colleagues called the relocated. Lines returned, disconnected. A text read, "Seen." No reply. Hours later, the sender's phone lost system access. Disappearances became warnings. No announcements, effective dates, or appeals. Career deaths without funerals spooked louder than raids. The world had never felt this quiet. Names deleted, data wiped, ID photos gone, inboxes cremated. In a staffing meeting, evaluations for 20 people tied to Hale's trial were missing. A tech probed the backup and found one string. Silence is the audit. "Who can delete like this?" he asked. The supervisor didn't answer, just placed his phone face down, like worried the microphone might dream unfriendly dreams. Downtown, a memorial wall for outstanding public servants came down. No explanation. Photos boxed, unlabeled, unreturned. Honor itself felt out of season. In a closed forum for brass, someone posted an old shot with Hale. Caption: "The man who never smiled." The post vanished within 2 hours. The poster's access dissolved. Next day, his badge read, "Review pending. Systems locked." A colleague whispered, "He forgot." Old photos maim. On the former chief's desk, a thick printout. Nobody convicted, nobody fired, one category only. Removed from system. Bottom scribble, executed per security directive, internal moral purge protocol, Chuo EH. No one asked EH. The initials weighed more than decrees. It was an eraser order from someone who didn't need to attend to decide who could continue existing inside government. Empty chairs multiplied. Names disappeared from mouths. When fear filled spaces once lit by law, a leak cut the fog. The trial was no accident. It had been engineered, tested, calibrated for 3 years. The first breadcrumb misfiled itself. An audit tech opened the wrong encrypted folder. Ethical compliance, live experiment, archive filed by M. Hale, timestamped 3 years ago. Objective, monitor ethical drift under non-interference. Final line in bold, no disclosure until reflection. Another log leaked. Hale blocked from printing training material. Outsider, no login. The IT note continued. These black guys love pretending to be agents. Nobody flagged it then. Now it trains rookies, alive as proof. CrowdTracker showed a local reporter recut Hale's escort with mocking audio. 1.4 million views, 80,000 comments. Silent guerrilla. After his identity broke, the account vanished. Duplicates remained, stains on a whiteboard that never whitens. Internal emails between court admins recommended the outer single seat for the defendant. Don't taint jurors. Another wrote, no records, no counsel, no address. Trash anywhere. Both suspended afterward. Forms ended in ellipses. A lobby guard stopped Hale for federal standards. 2 others questioned him. No video, but audio caught, silent as a statue, probably shocked we caught him faking. Reclassified later as training, examiners who must re-examine. Online, a viral game, spot the thug, Hale amid uniforms. Look how he stands, trial hardened. That post later headlined bitter arithmetic. When a nation confuses posture and skin with guilt, justice lives blindfolded backward. Every slur, smirk, share tracked the curve Hale submitted years prior. He didn't build a defense. He built a testbed so examiners would reveal themselves, convinced nobody watched. The stage was his. The script was his. The spotlight, his patience. Over a dozen hidden cameras installed 3 weeks ahead, swallowed angles, synced audio, and biometrics mapped reflexes. He waited, letting certainty manufacture confession. A day before the hearing, Howell sat on a stone bench. A logistics worker mistook him for homeless, handed a folded flyer. Free meals, go elsewhere. Days later, seeing the badge, he couldn't breathe. In the West Hall, law students filmed him. One, still acne-dotted, narrated, "Mindhunter vibe," tagged how cold-blooded creep. No apologies later. None finished law that term. A clerk handing prelims snickered, "No counsel, untouchable." Sealing audio caught contempt more clearly than words. Weeks later, he transferred to logistics. Coworkers noticed he couldn't hold eye contact past 2 seconds. Hale hadn't spoken because he didn't need to. Another leaked note: "We don't need to resist. We need to witness. The wicked think exposure requires argument." He refused reaction, proving patience can strike harder than fists and faster than pressers. A behavioral report read, "Stillness triggers oppressive reflexes. As predicted, less resistance yields more primal conduct. In Tier 0 files, Project Mirror, accessible to 3, modeled the spectrum: bias, mockery, edit abuse, authority excess." Hale wasn't reacting. He was measuring variance against prediction. The terror wasn't foreknowledge. It was that he arranged life so the system would expose itself uncoached. Everyone became unconsenting case studies. This wasn't entrapment. It was unguarded instinct surfacing. Absent enforcement spotlight, ethics evaporate. People choose themselves. Hale conducts. A young defense attorney memed Hale's pre-roll call. Still, light on data. Please plot twist. Engagement spiked. Someone added cheap laughter. Audio played as the judge entered. People coughed, pretended not to hear. The clip later landed on a seized laptop. No charges. Still, the evidence aged them. South hallway. Security shoved Hale's shoulder for standing inside tape. "If you don't know your place, don't come." Asked why, the officer answered, "To teach him his place." A passerby snorted, flagged complicit. A student observer scribbled, "Probably can take a beating. Face knows shame." Camera flagged it thrice for racial markers. She learned when 5 internships declined. No reasons. Silence can be heavy as granite. Nobody called Hale a victim. Nobody dared director. Whispers named him the man who rewrote moral architecture. People resent unannounced tests. They despise discovering they failed questions they didn't realize were graded. Before trial, a maintenance worker denied Hale an outlet, assumed legal aid, called security for removal. After identity revealed, he resigned. Note reading: "I flipped a switch on a system I didn't understand." A task force memo. Hale trained, don't attack directly. Build conditions. The system performs. It did. Overt cruelty, neat contempt, bending behavior. A heat map glowed red, yellow, orange. No clean white left anywhere. More brutal than truth was Hale's follow-up. None. No denial, no confirmation, no addresses. A final classified line chilled: "Systems don't need sermons. They need mirrors. Let consequences teach longer than speeches." Project Mirror leaked. Social rewound every second. A live stream showed a staffer dropping a water bottle at Hale's shoes. "Pick it up, quiet man." He didn't bend. The staffer retrieved it, smirking. Smallness documented. Another log. Double screenings by the same officer. "Your watch seems odd." "Already checked." Rechecking. Lawyers kept heads down. The map labeled it micro-oppression, systemic non-physical violence. A rare red burned full. Interagency email exposed a betting pool. Crier snapped before adjournment. Winner snagged a gift card. Laughter shook the room reading results. After truth, none remained. Some logistics, some unknown, some unlisted entirely. Reporters asked authorization. No one would answer. A coded executive order existed. Moral wager approved from higher ground. They never expected precision. They never considered the coin flipper didn't care about winning. Scoffers now lived under a permanent sense that everything recorded, not by cams, but by conscience. A judicial aide who wrote, "He smells from here," emailed ethics an apology. No reply. Archived as proof of confrontation. For Hale, the hearing wasn't climax, only signal. The next chapter brewed, swordless. He didn't unmask anyone. He waited while people loosened their own straps and yanked their disguises off themselves. People imagine purges end with sirens, guns, statements, flashing banners. When the links rusted through and sneers sagged in chairs they didn't deserve, Hale appeared, never on television, never with a podium. He walked into a closed Quantico conference like smoke, weightless and air-hollowing. The room had no name or agenda. Invites simply said, Be there. No lateness, no absences, for reasons nobody dared ask. Semicircle seating, soft lights, dim enough to fog edges, the big screen blank. Anxiety belonged to absence. A door opened. Hale entered like he'd always been in the hall, paused mid-thought. No escort, no introduction. Shoes clicked like pins. Charcoal suit, no insignia. A thin leather notebook in one hand, the other in pocket, passing through a corridor, not seizing a stage. Guesswork died at the threshold. A year earlier, he'd been pushed from a shared coffee machine. Employees only. Laughter layered like a laugh track. The shadow thinks it's real. The meme later wallpapered a restroom. Leadership saw it. Nobody removed it until revelation. The paint beneath, unweathered bone-white square. An instructor once presented Hale under improper posture before authority. The lecture never retracted. The instructor disappeared. Even among security, discipline cracked. Hale waited 45 minutes for a search. An officer declared, "Those eyes aren't civilian." Camera later filmed his face bleaching. As credentials appeared, he left speechless, gone. Needles under skin, endured by a man who never flinched. Now he stood, gait unaltered, silence unbroken, making memory stains bleed. No names required, everyone remembered their own. That's what mirrors do. No laughs, no movement, no nostalgia allowed. Everyone knew they'd been test subjects in an experiment they never saw begin. The man they labeled background now stood like a stage's wiring. He stopped center, not at the mic or podium. He didn't command the room or scan like a general. He lifted his eyes and read architecture already memorized, then spoke 7 words. I came to watch the system reflect. No sharp exhales, no standing ovations. The sentence wasn't fishing for validation. It sliced softly, sank deeply. They realized their jobs, not audience, mirrors. Hale came to see what those mirrors showed. A man who once cackled as Hale was dragged, wrists bound, curled into his chair, schoolboy posture, replaying his own profanity-laced narration on loop. He'd filmed and captioned, "Trash the city should toss to feel clean." The clip never leaked. Evidence remained lodged in its cruelest archive, his conscience. Front row, a senior admin remembered turning him away. No appointments, no admittance, with an empty waiting room. Asked later, she'd said, his face said he wasn't worth meeting. That quote once graffitied a restroom beside Hale's lonely cartoon silhouette. A chat called Blue Shield Memes posted him amid interrogators. How unemployed guys think they're agents. Psychology classes snickered monthly. When the badge appeared, the chat dissolved within hours, its maker reassigned silently. An officer who coined ghost, not mystery, insignificance, later carried electronics to a table, no charges. After reflection rituals, disappearance stops needing paperwork. No one writes memos for gravity. No cue given, notebooks opened. Everyone wrote a single line, no coordination, no command. Words failed against silence that collapses institutions. Records remained. I was here. I saw it. I heard him. In the last row, a young agent wrote until his hand cramped. His quiet outweighed verdicts. The smudged sentence mattered less than grip, afraid the thought might slip away unrecorded. They all knew Hale wouldn't be remembered for doing, but for the moment he did nothing, forcing a building to inspect its own scaffolding. He didn't stay, sign, or sidebar afterward. He left like he arrived, without noise. The room changed. He wasn't there to restore order, but to confirm the system had finally recognized its reflection. Pretending otherwise became impossible after that doorway. Seats warmed by clenched spines cooled. Air held like glass, cracked yet suspended. A security trainer, recent ethics keynote, sat head bowed, eyes red, disarray more than sorrow. Memory burned his previous punchlines. He recalled rejecting a volunteer interview with Hale years earlier. Skin, silence, demeanor. No way Central lets him near the core, he joked. Now the core had looked back without blinking. Third floor meeting once mocked Hale at the copier. This spot's for employees. Try legal aid. He checked the building map and left. 2 minutes later, her text, stone-faced, probably unstable, ended a promotion track. In the corridor, two young officers walked in silence. "Why no applause?" one asked. The other shook his head. Reverence more than surprise. People clap for endings. Hale opened the longest door. They remembered last winter when a gate couldn't read Hale. "3 steps back," the guard barked. "Quit staring." I hate that silence, like a dog that won't bark. The mic saved his future. No discipline necessary. Later he resigned. Reason, not aligned with organizational culture. A senior instructor closed his office a week after the Quantico meeting. His journal line, "When auditing no longer needs tests, certainty hurts." Down in auxiliary hall, an assistant once snapped during a file request, "I don't do half sentences from strangers." Hale smiled, unforced and calm. She forgot until the day his internal bulletin portrait appeared. Now she arrives early. Less to work than to avoid that name crossing her doorway. The internal transcript listed no speaker of record, no Marcus Hale, not required. Existence did the speaking. Not noisy, not theatrical, just making old sounds look ridiculous and future promises earnestly heavy. After Quantico, Hale's location blurred. No airports, no cameras, no calls, yet his pressure lingered in decisions and glances. People stopped asking, "Who is he?" They whispered, "Is he watching?" Obsession wasn't about job titles. It leaned on memory. A rumor lingered. Someone forced a shoe inspection, filming it for private laughs. A hand-on-head emoji over a dark-skinned cartoon captioned the clip. When the reveal landed, the captain's wife kicked him out. "Who exactly did you think was your punchline?" Some lessons break homes. Another story, the rainy corridor day, an intern shoved Hale, then posted a homeless bad luck check-in. 48 hours post-reveal, the thread became digital scar tissue. He vanished. Rumor said no more law school. A replayed internal montage showed the presiding officer squint. "Anything to say?" A smirk invited laughter. When Hale replied, "No." The camera caught Blade's steady eyes. The officer resigned. Note, "I'm unfit to judge." Elsewhere, an officer declared, "Men like him belong back in chains," in open court. His adult son legally changed surnames, severing kinship. Consequences in law and politics rarely wear cuffs. They prefer lineage. A week later at dawn, a new HQ officer reached the third-floor corridor. Executive territory. Fresh SWAT, mirror-bright shoes, new tag. Footsteps eager and tense, still unaware Power's address isn't an entry badge. He passed a glass door, polished like water. Gold ink, faint yet unmistakable. Marcus Hale, Directors, Federal Bureau of Investigation. He paused, not to admire, because the name had become a boundary marker. Many stories, rumors, erased photos, locked files, people who spoke that name with scorn, then learned silence. The name stood here, steady at the heart of American power, like upheaval was a dream. He looked at the glass and saw himself first, young face, unsure, tight eyes, with Hale's letters behind him, unsmudged. Wasn't he once on trial? The unvoiced question thumped his chest like a drum. He'd read what was public and what whistled through halls. An elevator door closed purposely on Hale. Skin too dark, suit insufficiently authoritative. The guard wasn't fired. Resignation followed 2 months of unbearable stares. Or the admin who deliberately mispronounced Hale's name on roll, sneering with a chorus behind her. That clip never aired. Internally, it became an ethical document. Promotions skipped them quietly thereafter. Camera footage showed Hale passing technicians at lunch. One flung a wrapper, "Clean up, you're stinking the floor." He didn't react. The frame recorded everyone else. The glances, smirks, swallowed objections, complicity tallied carefully. After revelation, none remained in place. No memos, no transfers. Systems simply trimmed branches. The rumor that chilled him, a ground-floor cafe refused service. No badge, no aura. Hale nodded, left in rain. 3 days later, the barista sent an apology to ethics. Nobody knows if it reached him or filed itself as a late lesson. The officer touched the glass, cool, substantial, inscription the only proof. The door wasn't for passing through, it was for reflecting. Some doors exist to ask what you're ready to face. He moved on without selfies or texts. The name isn't content, it's compass. At Hall's End, light filtered through frosted panes onto a new packet for rookies. No date, no author. First line read, "Justice doesn't need proclamation." The rest of the page felt heavier. He remembered Academy murmurs, classes adding Hale's footage to foundations, the hallway quiet, the instructor's slide. Justice isn't what you say, it's what you reveal. He closed his eyes, saw the bench. Outside, leaves scratched windows like pens on paper. In some buildings, weather writes policy better than committees. He exhaled, then kept walking, toward desks that require small, persistent decency more than speeches. At a vending alcove, he saw a sticker half peeled. The silent ones aren't to be trusted. Someone had scratched through aren't. The ghosted adhesive read barely, "The silent ones are." His training officer, gray at the temples, 50 now, met him by the stairwell. "Ready?" he asked. The rookie nodded. They both glanced back at that gold name, as if calibrating compasses. Somewhere else, a committee argued definitions. Oversight, humility, thresholds. In practice, humility sounds like "tell me everything and means it." Oversight sounds like "play it uncut" and honors it. Thresholds feel like breath held. Across town, an ex-official practiced apologies into a dead phone. He deleted takes, then wrote a single sentence on paper. "I mistook quiet for weakness." Paper is heavier than posts. In a basement archive, a tech labeled a drive. Mirror, primary. He paused and wrote beneath it, "Handle gently, reflects the holder." He locked the drawer, felt watched, then remembered that's how mirrors work. In classrooms, second-year cadets recited new protocol, preserve originals, 2 independent chains, no soundtrack in rooms of law. They repeated the words like catechism. Learning faith doesn't need music to stay true. A veteran prosecutor quoted Hale's line, "I came to watch the system reflect," in a lunchtime talk. Someone scoffed. The room cooled. Another replied simply, "Then start reflecting." The scoffer stared at soup. At home, a retired officer cleaned a shadowed frame print. Hale's badge reveal, monochrome. He didn't hang it publicly. He stood it inside a closet, opened sometimes when he needed ballast. A teenager read headlines for civics homework and asked, "Why did nobody clap?" Her mother said, "We clap when shows end. Justice isn't a show." The girl underlined it in her notes. The rookie reached the bullpen. A sergeant posted a strip above the whiteboard. "Say less. See more." He added below it, "Wait 10 seconds." Someone initialed MH in pencil, barely visible. Field emails pinged. No crisis, only a request. Inventory body cams. Certify uncut review. Certify viewers paused when laughter tempted. The checklist felt ordinary until they realized ordinary had rescued them from spectacle. In an unused office, a cardboard box held mugs. "He thinks he's a ghost. Someone taped it shut, marker thick. Do not distribute." A junior carried it away like hazardous waste. Outside, wind moved low over the lot. The rookie adjusted his tie, glanced again toward the frosted light. He didn't pray. He did something smaller. He decided which reflex to disobey. He took a breath he could measure, walked toward the day, and didn't announce anything. On the final page of his packet, a line waited without author. "Justice doesn't need proclamation. It needs proof." Lesson: let silence do the measuring. If you've lived long enough to watch decades turn, you know real character shows itself when the room thinks no one important is watching. In that courtroom, jokes flew like cheap firecrackers, until a badge changed the weather. The lesson isn't about spectacle, it's about restraint. Count to 10 before judgment. Keep your phone down. Let the full, uncut record speak. Silence, properly used, isn't weakness. It's a calibrated test of who we are when we think power is on our side. For those of us past 65, that's familiar wisdom. Talk less, see more, and let truth reveal itself without applause. Friends, I'd love your take. When have you seen silence expose the truth more clearly than arguments ever could? Think of moments at work, at church, in a courthouse, or even around the kitchen table when waiting those extra 10 seconds changed everything. Do you believe calm patience is still possible in our loud, fast, always recording world? And how do we teach that to our grandkids? Share your story in the comments. If this spoke to you, please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss future conversations that aim to bring more light than heat.